He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
No mai, whakarongo mai ki te Aotai whenua. Welcome to Country Life. I'm Sally Round.
Great to have your company. I'm Janina Schwanica. Today, we're taking you on a farm within New Zealand's biggest city to find out a few of the challenges farming amongst city dwellers.
And later, I'm with an animal trainer who has a real menagerie of farm animals and birds. Her sheep, chickens and horses also have a role in giving young people skills for life.
But first, to what's been making headlines on the Rural News Desk this week. Hemp industry laws are set to be loosened under sweeping changes. Industrial hemp growers will no longer require a licence if the plants contain less than 1% THC. But growers will need to notify police and the Ministry for Primary Industries before planting, so they're aware it's not illegal cannabis. Here's farmer Kelly Cooney, who trialled 5 hectares of industrial hemp on her sheep and beef farm near Timaru.
Hemp was interesting to me because it could do so many things. Seemed like the miracle crop. Definitely didn't get rich from it because of all the regulations around it. To see the licensing being dropped is awesome. More changes need to be made for it to really completely free up. Throw a hemp paddock in there and get the cattle on that'd be so good. Companion animals, being able to eat it. I just want it in the homes of every New Zealander.
The government's also cutting red tape for small meat processors and exploring how home kill could be made suitable for sale. The Food Safety Minister, Andrew Hoggard, says the number of carcasses which must be tested for certain bacteria will be reduced from April next year for micro-abattoirs, who've complained about restrictive and costly testing rules. Mr Hoggard says the government's also looking into rules for commercial home kill.
We've got challenges with sort of poison declarations for being able to turn more hunting meat, especially venison, into sellable products. We are working on that one as well, but then there's also some science challenges around withholding dates and residues and withholding areas as well from these poisons. So hopefully we'll be having solutions on the administrative side of that within the next few months, which should enable less time in front of the computer for those people.
Around 6 to 12 of New Zealand's small operators, who process between 200 to 2,000 farmed animals each year, will be affected. And also among legislative changes, new pig farming laws were passed this week, cancelling a ban on farrowing crates.
Biosecurity New Zealand is more than doubling its surveillance zone for invasive yellow-legged hornets on Auckland's North Shore. To date, 34 queen hornets and 22 nests have been found and destroyed. The zone's expanding from the initial 5-kilometre radius out to 11. Beekeepers within the wider zone will be placing traps near their hives.
The latest monthly survey from Rabobank shows farmer confidence has dipped, falling from the year's near record highs. But the average rating for the year remains the highest in the survey's 20-plus year history. Rabobank's Todd Charteris says farmer investment intentions are now at their highest level since mid-2017, with 1 in 5 dairy farmers looking at expanding.
A surplus of wine amid weakened global demand means hundreds of hectares of vines will go unpicked this harvest. Hawke's Bay Wine Chief Executive Brent Lynn says grapes from about 300 of the region's 4,500 hectares of vineyards will not be picked this year. 5,000 tonnes of grapes went unharvested last year.
We've seen these demand-supply imbalances before, and we'll see them again. We are naturally driven by the factors beyond the farm gate. With the economic environment, there has been pressure on the demand side. So growers are taking a decision on the supply side to manage production.
Brent Lynn says the drop will hurt contract growers especially. Further south, Marcus Pickens of Wine Marlborough says it's yet to be seen how many hectares of grapes won't be harvested. He says the oversupply caught growers a bit by surprise last vintage, but the industry is better prepared this year.
Lamb is set to steal the spotlight from ham on Kiwi Christmas tables this year. A survey of more than 1,100 New Zealanders shows 42% plan to serve lamb as their main Christmas protein, well ahead of pork or ham at 30% and beef at 13%.
And on the topic of lamb, New Zealand's lamb crop has edged higher this season, lifted by stronger ewe performance across most regions. Beef and Lamb New Zealand estimates 19.66 million lambs were born, up 1% on last year. All regions had higher lambing percentages, except the northern North Island, where dry conditions have hit feed.
And strong beef prices are helping raise record funds for the charity IHC, which supports those with intellectual disabilities, particularly in rural communities. The IHC Calf and Rural Scheme involves farmers donating a weaned calf. The funds from its sale goes towards IHC's coffers. IHC's Greg Miller says Mycoplasma bovis and COVID affected the scheme, which only returned to full strength last year, when it raised $1.2 million. He says this year looks likely to be a record fundraiser.
The sale prices have been great. The numbers we've been getting have been great. So, for example, the Temuka sale has just happened. We've got more calves to sale than last year, and the average price is just over $100 up per calf on last year. And so all up, that's about $50,000 up on last year just from that one sale.
And that's your rural news wrap for this week.
This is Country Life on RNZ National 101 FM.
We usually take you to far-flung places here at Country Life, but not this week. Today we're visiting a farm in the middle of New Zealand's largest city. 172 hectares of farmland and nature reserve surrounded on all sides by city dwellers. Cornwall Park has about 700 head of stock, yards, woolshed and fence paddocks, just like sheep and beef farms you'll find around New Zealand. But there are some major differences too, as producer Liz Garton found out.
I know these aren't your usual relaxing country life sounds. Busy roads, a busy cafe.
Hi, just after a coffee.
But my journey to today's guests takes me right into central Auckland and into Cornwall Park, where I grab a coffee before heading to a busy farm in the middle of the city.
Did you know there was a farm here?
Oh, yeah, sure. The animals everywhere.
Absolutely. Well, I've lived in the area for 30 odd years. I love it, and I love lambing.
No, I did not know there was a farm, but I have seen cows and sheep.
Yeah, all the cows and sheep, and we walk past like the area where they, do all the farm things.
One of those areas where they do the farm things is the shearing shed. It's a place you really need to smell to appreciate the sharp tang of lanolin from the freshly cut wool. And it's going off in here today with the music blasting as the shearing crew works their way through the flock. Unfortunately, after a run of perfect sunny days, we've had a couple of wet mornings in Tamaki Makaurau.
Our contractor says it always rains when I ring him. And her, Emily Welch is our contractor, and her husband Sam says when Peter rings it rains. So that's all right. Our crops like the soft rain we had yesterday morning and this morning. So if they don't get done today, they'll get done another day.
How many have you got to do?
760.
This is Cornwall Park Farm Manager Peter Maxwell. It's smoko at the woolshed.
Sit on this, where the flies are.
He's taken a seat on the Utes tailgate to have a quick chat with me.
This whole farm situation is from the gift, the Sir John Logan Campbell gift from 1901. So through next year we're going to I'll start celebrating 125 years of the farm being here, and that's all pretty cool.
But the farm has been operating since well before 1901.
There's a few news snippets about people farming on the property in 1850-something, a few funny ones. Something about the chap that was in charge was getting people to stop bringing their cows to service his bull through the night.
Today, the breeding program on the farm is a lot more organised. Peter buys in bulls and rams on alternate years, and they keep them for about 4 years, as long as they're working out.
They started a Simmental cattle stud here in about 1992. They're all polled, no horns. They're very quiet. Because where we are, they have to be quiet. So the 60 cows, and we've sort of progressed. Sometimes Simmentals have trouble calving, but we've done a bit of work on that. And so this is our first year that we haven't pulled a calf out of a heifer or a cow, and no dead calves.
Wow.
So we're actually a little bit thrilled about that.
And of course, the sheep, which after today will be freshly shorn.
They've had a bit of history of having these Perrindale ewes, and we've been buying some very good rams from Russell Profit down in Mahanui. So Russell and Mavis have done this whole facial eczema thing. Facial eczema is a pretty bad disease in sheep, and they've done an enormous amount of work trying to get the sheep better. So we've only been doing that about 6 years. So we believe we're getting less facial eczema and less deaths, which is always a good thing.
Peter brings in a crew to share the sheep. Rosie Harwood, has been hard at work this morning.
I'm looking to separate the bellies from underneath the sheep, and I'm looking for their crutch and all the shitty dags and bits and pieces, and we're trying to keep all the clean, nice wool all together. And we'll chuck it all in the press, and we'll get a nice bale out of it.
This is a university gig for 19-year-old Rosie, who's studying at Canterbury University.
Well, my dad's a shearer, so I've been in and out of wool sheds since forever. We drove up here in the rain and hoping for some dry sheep in the sheds.
Did you get any?
Yep, we definitely did. The boys are working hard this morning, yeah.
While the whole crew were working hard, music blasting, I had a chat with Jacob Smith, whose shoelaces we featured on Country Life earlier this year. Jacob's looking at a joint venture with Cornwall Park Farm.
I'm always wanting to support as much of the wool industry as I can, so we're trying to get more sheep and wool to be part of our journey for bringing wool to the front of streetwear. So at the moment we're at Cornwall Park trying to see if we can use their wool to create exclusive shoelaces for Cornwall Park's shop.
Peter's keen on the idea of keeping it local.
If we do something with those shoelaces, that would be quite cool. Yeah, we're just going to give it a go. If he buys the wool, we'll just see, and we'll just keep selling it to him. He's good and he's local, so that's probably a good thing.
So Peter's been managing Cornwall Park Farm since 2007.
This job came up, we were successful. It's a very nice house that we've got here, so we like that. Angela likes it here, so...
That's your wife?
Angela, yeah 41 years. So.
And he says managing a small city farm is different.
We're not no neighbours to send stuff off to or graze, so it's all in-house. We buy a silage in, but they have to stay here, so the animals. So we do a bit of a lamb crop every year, 12 hectares of that, and that goes into new grass in the autumn. A lot of that's to do with the Kaikuyu. This place, Auckland's the weediest city in the world. Everything grows, so there's every sort of weed you can think of. So we spray out an area and crop it, and then spray it out again when it comes out of Raffno, Peloton Raffno has sort of been stuck to for the last few years, and a bit of this rocket fuel chicory over there. And then it goes back to new grass, so we get a crack every few years at trying to drop down the rat's tail and the Kaikuyu and anything else, only hungerweed. There's a few challenges here and there with some archaeological areas that we don't graze cattle on, and so that's a bit of an issue with some of the weeds and the worms and that sort of stuff, but we're just working on that the whole time, just trying to keep the worms and weeds down. That's the trick.
The lack of farming neighbours is something Peter is very aware of. He stays connected through industry events, and he's recently joined the Kaipara Farms discussion group, which has been good for chat with other farmers. And he takes particular interest in the dog trials.
I've tried to get a little bit better at training them, which probably hasn't been that successful, but Brenton is very good with his dogs.
Brenton is Brenton Hellier, the senior farm assistant.
They've got to be sort of park dogs first, just well trained and good with other dogs. There's hundreds of dogs in here, so we're crossing sheep or cattle across the road. They can't be running off and fighting with the Bichons and the snappy fox terriers and that sort of thing. But as I say, Brenton's much better than me, and that's probably why I've gone to these dog trials. Training days, so they're all quite well bred but poorly trained on my ones. So that's why
you're probably being hard on yourself.
No, everyone knows.
The thing about working a city farm is that there are always people around, and while there aren't farming neighbours, there are still neighbours.
You can tell people have just bought a new house, or they chuck rubbish over the fence and they have a loose dog, and so that takes a bit of training. So almost everyone's trained.
I love that. You've got to train your neighbours up.
Well, there's a bit of that. They all like the farm outlook, but they tell them not to stick their rhododendrons and their other crap over the fence.
Peter says most of the neighbours are very good, although he's had some memorable moments.
There was one neighbour rang every Sunday afternoon to say there's a lamb sick or dead in a particular sheep camp just out from her house. And we thought, that's bad, but we went out and they all ran away. And then the next Sunday she rang, there's a lamb, that lamb's still there, it's just sleeping. And the next, this went on, and she said, there's still one there. And I said, oh, they're fine, they just sleep there, lovely view. And she said, I put some sheep pellets out for it to eat. And so, that's unusual. So we went out there, but they weren't sheep pellets as in lucerne and a bit of oats and some chaff mixed in together. They were from the other end of the sheep. They were the sheep pellets that you put on the garden, the sheep poo pellets. So we explained that was the wrong sort of sheep pellets. But there's numerous people, and that's the whole thing. We don't lie where the sheep go. Freezing Works is just 8 kilometres that way, and so all the wethers and the cull ewe lambs slaughtered there, and that's really to help defray some of the expenses in the farm. That's my sort of thing, is restrain the loss, and we've pretty much done that every year.
There are other considerations that Peter also has to give weight to with this city farm that other farmers might not.
Trust board said every ewe have a lamb and every cow have a calf, so there's those sort of, other people may laugh about that, but that's why we're working on these ewes to have more twins. No pets. They don't want it to be a petting zoo. They really do, really want it to be a commercial look, commercial feel.
So Cornwall Park is self-funded from leasing out land in the surrounding area. And while it doesn't rely on the farm for profit, as you heard, Peter talks in terms of trying to restrain the loss.
We get as much money for the lambs as we can, as much money for the bulls as we can. We spend a little bit more than some other people, perhaps on animal health, just for other reasons. But we have some constraints. We've just got to the stage where we're self-sufficient with our cropping, so we can do all our spraying, cultivating, rolling and seeding. We sow everything down ourselves, so we'll take a little pride in that.
Of all the differences between a city farm and a rural farm, the biggest has to be the people.
We have a lot of volunteers coming and going, a few cadet types years and years ago. Some of them have gone on to big jobs, which is quite pleasing, taking people from the city and going out onto farms. That's probably one of our KPIs. We're open every day, so there's people around all the time. We know there's 1 million cars going through here, and possibly 2 million people. So it's pretty busy that way, keeping everything looking reasonable.
That's a challenge not many farmers would have, would they?
We've covered it. I think we worry a lot about animal welfare and stuff. There's a few people, a lot of it's interpretation. I explain to people that there will be a few lame sheep. There's always a bit of foot rot on this property. So we do an awful lot. You might have seen those sheep running out through the trough. Every time they come past these yards, they go through the trough.
As Peter said, millions of people are wandering through the park and the farm every year, many with dogs.
Yeah, we have had a few frights with town dogs. Just the other day we had a loose dog that was being let loose by some people, attacked another dog, and that was apparently a big vet job and the police and everything. Yeah, we've had some frights with the stock, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the public. I call it the people police. There's the people, that many people, they are watching, they're all watching. A lot of, hundreds of dogs in a day. So they've got their dogs in the lead, they want everyone else's dogs in the lead too. They don't want to be rushed at and attacked at and barking. And generally, it's this quietness that people come for, which is exactly what Sir John Logan Campbell wanted. He wanted to be the lungs of Auckland, clean air. And with this amount of trees, we have very clever arborists looking after 6,000 registered trees. And so, yeah, the tree thing is a big deal. A lot of shade and shelter for the stock.
Hiya.
How are you, Thomas?
Hi Thomas, I'm Liz.
Hi Liz.
This is as good a time as any to introduce Thomas McDougall, Cornwall Park's lead arborist. He picks me up in the ute.
Yeah, my knees are blown out from 25 years of climbing, so...
And drives us off to have a chat amongst the trees.
So how long have you been the arborist here?
I came to work here about 10 years ago, just as a junior arborist, even though I was fairly experienced. And then I've slowly risen through the ranks. So now I'm a lead arborist and, quite privileged to be able to work on the veteran trees and in the middle of the city.
Yeah, cool. So where are we going to go?
There's quite a few interesting places around here. We're not necessarily an arboretum, but we are a collection of trees, and so people have planted trees here for various reasons. Where we're walking down to now, this is a eucalyptus grove. These are actually an old forestry project, so it's a bit of a scientific project. Each row is a different species of eucalypt, and they wanted to sort of measure growth rates and whether it would be good for New Zealand forestry. Same with our Kari Grove, so we're about to walk into the Kari Grove.
How long has it been running for?
Since the 70s, I believe, 60s or 70s, yeah. We taped this one out about 5 years ago as a way to mitigate Kari dieback. And it had a great knock-on effect, keeping the public and the mowers and stuff out of there, and you can see all the native rejuvenation. That's happened completely naturally. We've had no physical planting, that's all been birds coming, depositing seeds. So now we've got this beautiful understory.
The gum and Cody stands are still being monitored. Thomas says recent measurements suggest the Cornwall Park Cody has had the largest growth rate of any Cody stand in New Zealand, which he puts down to Auckland's warm, wet conditions and the alluvial soil.
You can see why John Logan Campbell wanted to put a park here. You know, it's one of the most amazing locations to grow stuff, so we're very lucky with that as well.
What is the main sort of thing you're looking to do with your job and with the trees here?
Well, I've said this before, like my favourite part of the job is looking after our veteran trees. So we've got a lot of trees that are coming into senescence, the end of their life. So like sort of nurturing those mature trees and keeping them alive for future generations.
There are 3 sets of heritage trees within the park. The first are the redwoods, the second is an old Algerian oak,
which is possibly one of our most impressive trees in the park.
And the third is an olive grove.
Yeah, that was planted by John Logan Campbell.
It's that old?
It is very old, yeah. It isn't used as a olive production, but we have harvested it before, and we did press some olive oil, which was quite interesting. I've got a bottle in the cupboard at home somewhere.
Tastes all right?
Tasted great. It had subtle hints of a banana, apparently. I'm not an olive oil expert.
You didn't notice the banana?
No.
The sheer variety of trees is a constant challenge for Thomas.
I always sort of see the park as like an old people's home and a daycare mixed together, because we've got like all these old trees and then all the younger trees. There was a historical gap in planting, so that is quite a unique challenge, that you're trying to get all the little ones to come away and at the same time nurture the older ones. But that's kind of what keeps me entertained, I guess.
With very old trees, is that what you're doing? You're sort of lopping the tops off? Is this an old one?
Yeah, well, that's a kind of a crude way of putting it, but we've got technical words that make it sound a bit flashier than that. Give them a haircut. No, we have retrenchment pruning, which is like a slow reduction of the tree, and it is killing the tree, but it's done over a long period of time, and you can slow that process and let the tree come away again. And that keeps the tree in a tolerable range for our risk assessment, without losing, all the benefits of having a mature tree.
Because I imagine, that's one of the things people come here for, isn't it?
Well, if there wasn't trees at Cornwall Park, it would be like a paddock. I think a lot of people do appreciate it. I love seeing families picnicking and wandering through. People get married under here and forest bathing at the weekend, or whatever people like to get up to. It really is I think it's like a jewel in Auckland. Where else in the world do you really have something like this? It's amazing.
There's something very relaxing and peaceful about trees. Do you find that having to work with them all the time? Or is it just a job?
No, it's definitely not just a job. I try not to take it for granted, and I say to my colleagues every day, we're so lucky to be able to work in this environment. Most people are in the office or racing around the city, and they might come to Cornwall Park at the weekend to sort of have a bit of R&R and get back with nature, but we're doing that every day at work. So in that respect, very, very lucky.
And the birds too. Just heard a bunch of them fly up.
Yeah, well, it's a bit of a haven for native bird life, and as I was saying earlier, with some of our understory work that we've been doing, it really has increased the bird life. It's such an amazing food source and habitat for the native birds, and there's a few pheasants and all sorts of stuff dotted around.
Yeah, listen to that.
You wouldn't think you're in the middle of the city, eh?
The bird life in the park is another feature that makes managing Cornwall Park Farm slightly different to other farms.
We have a bit of a pheasant population here. They like the long grass admittedly, and especially that chicory over there. So pheasants and California quail. There's quite a population of them. There's probably a few too many paradise ducks of late. We have a small population of guinea fowl that are there to entertain people. The kids chase them and the guinea fowl chase the kids, and it's around a circus, so it is hilarious watching that. So that's just up there on Chicken Corner. We have a bit of a thing about chickens. People dump chicken or roosters and other people feed them, so that's not a good thing because they overfeed them and the rats come in. Quite a rat population we've had to control.
I imagine that's one pest that you would have in a city in a greater number than outside of rats. I mean, country farms have rats as well, but it's just an urban thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And we have hundreds of bait stations. It's just hopeless. But we do what we can on the rat thing. No one wants them, so we just sort of limited the chickens and don't want people to feed them, feed anything along there.
Peter describes his role as farm manager within the wider park as...
It's a three-pronged attack: restrain the loss, education, interpretation and grass control.
For many city folk, Cornwall Park Farm is their only insight into what farming is like, and that can shape their perception of this cornerstone of New Zealand's economy. And keeping a park like this in top shape for visitors would be pretty tough without the stock.
4 guys on mowers all day, every day, or almost every day, mowing grass on the amenity area, but they couldn't really mow all through these rocks and all the rest of it. So, yeah.
And what's the main sort of feedback you get from the people of Auckland about the farm in particular?
There's a study Lincoln University did a study. 99% of the visitors of the park liked having the farm here. We like that sort of survey. We've done another one that we funded, and 85% saw some value in the park, in the farm. But it's become integral. It's the farm in the middle of town. People come and expect to see the sheep and the cattle and the cherry blossoms and the pheasants. They expect it now. It's been here a long time.
And if the people I spoke to are any indication, Peter and the team at Cornwall Park are absolutely nailing it.
It's beautiful, and every time we have overseas visitors, I always bring them up here.
What do you like about it? What do you come here for?
It's the trees. It's the trees, it's the greenery, and it's the open spaces.
Just the space, a little bit of serenity in the city.
A bit of exercise and, a bit of nature, fresh air.
It's great to have that kind of nature, and it is accessible, but it is keeping the animals safe, so it's great.
The greenery and the vegetation, Get a coffee, do good coffees here.
That was Liz Garton checking out Cornwall Park Farm, which will be hosting a farm week in March next year.
Kia ora, I'm Andy Blair from Upflow. We're trying to create feed from carbon dioxide and methane to feed your stock. You're listening to Country Life on RNZ National.
Now to the Bay of Plenty, where on a picturesque hilltop on the edge of the Kaimai Range, you'll find Bex Tasker, her young helpers, and an assortment of farm animals.
All right, kids, come out here and help me set up some things. Who are we going to play with? Let's play with Rupert. Yeah.
Bex Tasker has been training animals and helping people to train animals for more than 2 decades now.
Out you go, Rupert.
It's springtime, and we're at her 5.5 hectare farmlet in the Bay of Plenty.
The Kaimai Ranges are up behind us to the west, and then out, we're looking out over towards Matakana Island across the Tauranga Harbour. And we're sitting here quite high up, looking right out at it. It's beautiful. So somebody needs to put a collar on Pipsqueak, and someone needs to go and grab... Jose, would you like to get Max out?
It's busy, with children setting up for training sessions and a newborn lamb to attend to too.
I have 8 horses at the moment. I breed sheep. I've got bunnies. I've got a couple of pet cows. I've got 6 or so very special valet black-nosed sheep, which are quite a unique, rare breed. Almost all of these animals are part of my animal training business. So we do kids workshops. I take a lot of my different animals out to perform trick shows and meet the public and and do the PR job out at markets and A&P shows and things like that. Yeah, and then I train horses. I travel around New Zealand and overseas teaching people how to train horses.
Bex also has some clever rescue chooks which play table football. Why, you may ask? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's meet one of the kids on one of Bex's youth programs. It's called Next Gen Trainers, and this trainee is in the paddock with one of the young sheep.
My name is Ariella, and I am 13 years old.
And what are you going to do with Pipsqueak?
Keep on working on his wave because he does it constantly.
Wave?
Yes, trying to get him to do it on cue. Yeah. I do public shows with Bex, and we're trying to get them, all the sheep pretty much, to wave on the pedestal, and I trained him to do that for an A&P show. Yeah.
Okay, show me what you can do.
Okay, come on, Pipsqueak.
Pipsqueak's on a lead.
Come on. Oh, yep, there we go. He did a little wave, and then when he does, I'm going to click for him and reward him.
So will he at a show just stand without the food and wave? Or will it
it's a
translate?
work in progress. That's how it started. I was just trying to train him to stand on the pedestal, but he kept on nudging me with his foot, and I'm like, I think I can turn this into something. It's more about trying to get him to get out of bad habits of, nudging me and more wanting him to wave in front of him.
Timing is everything?
Yes, definitely. If you get it wrong, then he could be thinking he needs to do something else.
So what have you got out of this program?
All my training knowledge, really. Learning about all the different animals. Also, I've learned how to horse ride here. I use all this knowledge as well with my animals.
And what are the main qualities you need to be able to train?
Confidence, for sure. You need to have good timing and love animals.
And I guess patience.
Yes, and patience, for sure. See? It's frustration.
We'll leave Ariella and Pipsqueak and head back over to Bex, who's like a ringmaster among all these kids and animals. She moved here a decade ago after working as a drug dog handler for customs and training as a vet nurse and with guide dogs. After discovering positive reinforcement training, she decided to set up her business called Positively Together.
The focus being on offering positive reinforcement, so force-free, reward-based options for training, for behaviour change. So taking a science-based kind of ethical approach to training. So that my focus was on horses completely at that point. And I started doing some kids programs because there's always such demand. So that's where I branched out into other species and discovered just how magical the sheep are as training partners, particularly for youth. And my little dog, and I've got rabbits, I've got chickens, and the kids get involved with all of them. And so it just expanded from there. Some of them just love the animals. Some of them love the friendships they make. We've been doing this for 5 years now, these youth programs. And so there are lifelong friendships that have been built between, it's mostly girls that come, although there's a handful of boys. And so all sorts of ages. Some of them are just absolutely, they get nerdy like I do about the training. And some of them just love cuddling the animals, and yeah.
Are some doing it for therapy reasons?
Yeah, so we've got a new program just starting, which is called Animal Adventurers. That's going to be a therapeutic program. So some of them have been, and we wanted to provide more options for youth that needed that or that would benefit from that.
Why did you want to do that? Are you seeing more need for that?
Yeah, there is a need for it, and so the Riding for the Disabled in Welcome Bay offers some riding programs, which is really good for the physical therapy, but there's definitely a need for our neurodiverse kids and all sorts of other sort of medical complexities and challenges. My best friend is Brooke, and she's a youth worker with a background in this stuff, and so really it's her that's going to be driving that therapeutic program. She knows the animals here as well as I do, which is important to me because the animals have to be happy in their work as well.
Barnaby. One of Bex's top trained sheep, Barnaby. Not your ordinary sheep, and today she's putting him through his paces.
Ready, go, hop. He is a valet black nose, which is a Swiss breed And yeah, they are huge. He's the same size as my miniature horses, so they're a very large breed of sheep. They're beginning to be a little more popular. Most people have probably seen them here and there. They've got the striking sort of black nose and the big horns and the long ringlets. I get old-time sheep farmers coming up to me at markets and shows sort of going, what is it? You know, like they've been in sheep their whole lives and they've never seen anything like it. So they're quite unusual looking. Up. Should we go higher? Should we go up one? So he is my main man in terms of in the shows. He's the main guy, although I've got 4 others. He fetches and he does jumps and he does spins. He's quite surprisingly athletic for how heavy set he is. So the crowds always love seeing him jump. The show that I do at the AMP shows in the markets is called Animal Magic. So it's the magic of training, it's the magic of animals, but there's also literal magic tricks in there, which I think is really fun. I've never been very good at it, but I've always enjoyed card tricks and magic tricks and things like that. So I thought, well, why not have the magic of training, but incorporate that into the show. So I've got a chicken that can predict what card someone's going to pull out of the deck of cards. Barnaby does like a mind reading prediction trick. Yeah, so
well, I'm looking forward to seeing this one.
Yeah, so I'll show you how he fetches his squeaky toy, and you'll probably hear him squeaking it as he brings it back to me. And then we'll see what else he feels like doing today. But good boy. He will play this all day long. It's not difficult to teach a dog to fetch. Sheep, you need to train them tiny step by tiny step. I basically teach him to put an object in his mouth and then feed him. And then over time, he understands that when the toy is in his mouth and he places the toy in my hand, that he will get a click and a treat. So then we can obviously move on to putting it on the ground, and he knows that he needs to bring it to me in order to get his treat. And so for him, it's called a behaviour chain. So we chain it from the very end. Anyone that's trained dogs to retrieve in any kind of formal manner, it's fairly similar to that. But most of us that have dogs that retrieve objects, they just naturally do it. You know, it's something that a predator animal naturally chases things, whereas the sheep, obviously that's completely unnatural to them. So my horses fetch as well. So my sheep and my horses, it's the same with the horses. It requires you to break the behaviour down into tiny pieces and shape it step by step. The redeeming feature of sheep as training partners is how incredibly food motivated they are. And they're very reliable. I take them into some pretty unusual situations, into schools and markets and fairs and things with big groups of people. You know, often the teenagers that are helping me in the shows, they'll take them for a walk through the show and line up for ice cream with crowds all around, and the sheep aren't bothered at all. They also do love a good scratch. Very, very tactile animals, sheep. So in my opinion, we just really miss out on the joy of these animals when they're just sitting in the paddock and they're running away from us. People say that they're stupid, but they're not actually. They're just trying to survive. They're trying to save their own lives because they're terrified. But anyone that's raised a bottle lamb will know that when they're not terrified, they're actually a lot of fun.
So with these tricks that you do with Barnaby in particular, what is the point of it? What are you teaching kids here?
This is something which I am super, super passionate about, is force-free training, positive reinforcement training. And while it all seems very silly and cute and fun, for me there's a much deeper message, deeper meaning. I'm really passionate about the preteens and the teen age group in particular. And really role modelling and showing the importance of respecting body autonomy, of looking for consent when we're interacting with other beings, whether those are sheep or chickens or humans. So, force-free training is about making behaviour change, but it's about doing it in a way that the animal's on board with, and that the animal is having as much fun as we are. Whereas I think traditional animal training is about making the animals do things because it's convenient for humans, because it's, safe for us, or it gives us something that that suits our goals, whether those are financial or competition or whatever it might be, and those are all fine. And I believe that we can achieve the goals that we want to achieve with our animals in a way that they're going to be on board with it. And so if I can teach kids about that, then that will transfer across to their wider lives.
Can you share some of the stories that you've experienced proving this?
So one that comes to mind is I had a teenager some years ago who had gone through a fairly traumatic kind of early teen stage, and she was about 15 by the time she was training with me. She became a fairly savvy little trainer, and she was working primarily with horses, but she came to me one day and she said that there'd been a kid at her school who was kind of bullying, I guess, sort of pushing her around or blocking doors when she wanted to go through them, or just, that kind of behaviour, which for many young teenagers would be pretty upsetting. And she was telling me about how she was trying to figure out what was going on underneath. She said maybe their grandmother died, maybe they've got an abusive parent. In other words, she was looking at the underlying problem or the underlying need that was driving that behaviour.
Something she's learnt from the training.
Yeah, which comes from looking at, if the horse pins its ears back and tries to bite you, rather than calling it rude or naughty or whatever, what I'm teaching is that we want to actually look at what's the underlying driver behind that. And, it's probably, with horses at least, it's probably discomfort or fear. And so, we can put these labels on animals like the sheep is stupid because it runs away. Actually, it's running away because it's trying to save its own life. The horse is stubborn or dominant or whatever because it's trying to kick, when actually it's just trying to protect itself.
10-year-old Elena is with Misty, a small pony.
Misty's going up on a pedestal, but he can try get into the treat pouch, as he kind of is trying to right now.
You've got the treat pouch hanging around your shoulders.
Yeah.
And he's reaching up into it. What have you learned?
Well, I've learnt a lot about the handling and the body language, and I've learnt a lot about horse riding too. And I've learnt about lots of what animals can really do with the tricks of what Bex does. It's definitely taught me to be patient with animals, because sometimes that's kind of hard because they're like pushing you and you're like, oh, come on, just stop doing that.
And do you put some of this training into use at home?
Yeah, sort of. Well, it's just kind of hard to train our chickens because they just want food.
And speaking of chooks, let's head over to the chook house.
The chickens that I've got here at Positively Together are rescued from commercial egg farms. Ironically, these rescue chickens, because they've been in sheds and every time they see humans, they're presumably topping up the food or whatever. So even though some of them have been pretty poorly treated in their lives, they haven't had great lives at the farms they've been in, they don't associate that with humans. And so they arrive with very few feathers and sort of often with their beaks all being trimmed or that kind of thing, never having sort of had grass under their feet and the sun on their backs and dust baths and all of that. But they're very, very easy to tame and train. They're very people-focused.
And the chickens are showing off their jumping skills.
We can see that Ariella and Rada are holding the food up high, and then when the chickens jump up, and they basically boing off the ground, and then you can hear Ariella clicking when they reach the top of their jump, and then feed them when they're on the ground. The chickens like it, and it's a natural behaviour for them, but it looks very funny. It makes for good photos, and the kids enjoy it.
So it is a natural behaviour. You're not making them do something that they don't normally do.
What they're actually doing, the way it starts out, is they're just jumping up to peck food. So if there was food up high somewhere, if they were trying to get up to fruit hanging from a tree, or if we were to hang a corn cob from the roof of their house for enrichment purposes, they would do exactly this to jump up and get it. So the thing with positive reinforcement is what we're doing is we're finding behaviours that the animal is naturally doing, and then we're building upon them. We're not going to teach the chickens to do a forward roll or to backflip, because it's not something they're naturally going to do. And so we can always feel confident that they're doing it because they want to do it.
Now, you have had chickens trained to play football.
Yes, so
that's not something they're naturally.
No, but but the actual base behaviour of that is pecking. And so they play football by pecking the ball. So Marigold and Boots here and another one called Daffodil are the soccer players. I put them on a table. I put a little edge around the table so the ball can't fall off, because that would be frustrating for the chickens. And then they understand that when they see the ball, they pick the ball. And when they pick the ball, I click and I feed them. So we end up having a little football game between the two chickens. I'm not saying they necessarily push the ball towards the same goal every time. Sometimes there's quite a lot of own goals happening, but it's entertaining regardless. And the chickens love it because what they're doing is just pecking an object. So I just give them a snack every now and then, and they're happy.
Some people might say that making animals perform is not a natural thing to do. That's pretty unfair on the animal. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, my response is that we ask the animal, and my animals tell me that they love it more than anything. And my horses, they'll come literally galloping from the other end of the paddock, neighing when they see me come to the gate, because they're so keen to train. So rather than putting human ideology and human ideas onto our animals, this is a good example of where we need to ask the animal. And of course, yes, they're performing, but they're also living 99.9% of the time in a paddock with friends. So they're not living an unnatural lifestyle. And then every now and then I pull them out and take them out and do things, and they're always happy to perform.
Marigold the chicken is also good at picking colours.
So what she's doing is colour discrimination. So in other words, she knows to pick the red cone, and she doesn't pick the other colours. So this is the most natural behaviour a chicken can possibly do, obviously, which is to peck something. So this starts with teaching her to peck the object. So in the very beginning I might do that by putting some food onto it, or hang on, just wait. She gets very impatient if I'm not quick. So she understands that when she hears the click, she can go and get the food. What we can do is we can build up a long chain of behaviours. So I can have her go over a seesaw and through a tunnel and around a cone and back again and peck the thing in exchange for one click and one piece of food over time. She understands that her behaviour is what gets the click to happen, and the click is what gets the food to happen.
They're not colourblind, as some people might think.
No, birds, our grazing species, like our sheep and our horses, are colourblind to colours like red will just look like yellowy, greeny colours, because it makes sense because they're herbivores, right? So they're eating grass, and the grass is what they need to look for. But birds, as omnivores, are looking for bright colours. They want to see the worm. They want to see, you think about parrots looking for fruit. So our birds actually have a wider range of vision than we do in terms of colour. So doing colour discrimination with a chicken is a lot easier than doing colour discrimination with a horse or a sheep. Yeah.
Which is the easiest species to train?
It sounds like a cop-out, but I honestly find them all easy in their own way. Dogs have much faster reps as do chickens. So like a chicken or a dog, I can click and treat, I can get lots and lots of reps, shape a behaviour fast, because you can see that the chicken is ready to go. She pecks and she's ready for the next one. A horse moves a lot slower, and they take longer to think things through, not because they're not as intelligent, but because their bodies move slower and they're bigger animals.
Jumping chooks, waving sheep, singing cockatiels and smiling horses. Yes, Bex has trained one of her herd to give a great big toothy grin for the camera. But nothing beats a newborn lamb for cute factor, especially one from her baby doll cross sheep.
I call them the wool puppies because I breed them as lifestyle pets, basically. So I sell them tamed and trained. So people buy them sometimes to graze orchards. They've got little short legs, and so they don't climb trees and, cause damage. They just eat the grass. You can see from the ones we're looking at that they would be lucky if they could get their front legs off the ground because they're quite solid little things.
Yeah.
So the more tamed and trained they are, the more money they sell for. So sometimes people don't care. They just want... we call it nut trained, so if you shake the nuts they come running and it makes them easy to move. A lot of my people that buy my sheep are first time sheep owners, so I provide that support of kind of teaching them about how we take care of them, and they don't have to chase them, they don't have to push them or have dogs or have the stress of trying to corner them when they need to do work, because maybe they don't have fancy sheep yards and things, maybe they're just pushing them into the corner behind a gate, but because they're so well handled and so friendly. So we'll be weaning by Christmas and they'll be heading off to new homes. I'll pick the best and the friendliest ones to stay and work with the kids' programs I do here. So here we go. Hello, Madeline.
Hello.
Hello, sweetheart.
A beautiful brown motley coloured
Yeah.
sheep here by our side.
So
Come
this
up for a
is
scratch.
Madeline is an example of a ewe raised. So she's not bottle raised, but she's walked right up to me for a scratch on the head and just to say hi. And so you can see that when you handle them and when their mums are friendly, it's really easy, to get the lambs friendly.
Bex Tasker of Positively Together with some of her valet black-nosed sheep at Aongatete in Bay of Plenty. And take a look at the photos of Bex and the animals on the accompanying story on our website. Go to rnz.co.nz/countrylife.
I'd love to see a video of those chickens playing football if there's one.
Yes, there is one. That'll be in the story as well. And also there's a photo of a grinning horse.
A grinning horse?
Yeah, you got to see it to believe it.
Well, we'd hate for you to miss an episode of Country Life, so make sure you click follow on your app. And if you're enjoying the show, give us a shout out on social media or tell a friend by sharing the show.
And do keep sending in your feedback to country@rnz.co.nz. In the field today were me, Sally Round, and Liz Garton.
In the studio production team, David Knowles, William Saunders and Jeremy Veal.
Ka kite.
Bye for now.